Hello and welcome to the session on Agentic AI. I'm Rakesh Jayaprakash. I'll be the host for this session today. A little bit about me before we start. I head our analytics product at ManageEngine, and I'm also the chief analytics evangelist at ManageEngine. Now, we hear about Agentic AI quite often these days, and honestly, with a lot of fluff added to it. It's usually spoken about with context, but sometimes gets blown out of proportion. So, I wanted to speak about this topic to ground all of our expectations and set some clear context on what is really possible and where we currently stand in this journey of this promise of agentic AI and how it is set to revolutionize almost every industry that relies to some extent on IT, which is almost every industry today. Some housekeeping rules. All of you are going to be in listen only mode, but at any point in time during the course of this webinar, if you have any questions, uh, please feel free to use the Q&A panel on the left side of the menu and ask your questions. I'll try to answer them towards the end of the session, but also in the meantime, my colleague will try to answer the questions as well. All right, so with that, we will go ahead and get started. And all of you are going to get a copy of this webinar once we are done. All right, so with that, we'll get started. Now, the whole reason I kind of set out on this idea of making this webinar, or one of the reasons I would say, is I happened to be at an airport recently where I saw this giant TV with ads running on it for Samsung products, and literally all products that were being advertised, not surprisingly, had AI on it. That was pretty much the key point that was being advertised, though, of course, we know what um, a washing machine or these products do in general. Now, ranging from a fridge to a washing machine, everything had AI on it. What does an AI washing machine actually do? Well, here's what they claim it does. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of some Samsung products, but would I pay extra for an AI washing machine that automatically senses the fabric that is in the wash cycle and adjusts the water temperature and settings accordingly? Now, for as long as I've been using washing machines, I've only used it in one setting, which is the Quick 30. And I'm sure I fall in the basket of majority users who use washing machines this way. Now, for those of you who think, yes, this is something that I would definitely pay extra for, I have a question for you. Would you really trust this washing machine to pick the right setting when you put in a very expensive piece of clothing or something that is emotionally very close to you, like a wedding gown, which you know is delicate? There are two things at play here. Are we willing to pay 2x the price of a regular washing machine for something that doesn't really take too long to figure out ourselves? And two, when the time comes, would you trust it enough to let it do what it claims to do? Now, that is a very important question that we should ask ourselves because, to a large extent, how things operate in the B2C, that is, business to consumer space, is very different from how things work in the enterprise world. On the enterprise side of the spectrum, we hear a lot about agentic AI and how it is set to revolutionize and automate majority of the things we do today. Now, before we set out to talk about whether it's capable of that or not, we need to fully understand what exactly we mean by agentic AI. Since the term gets thrown around quite a bit, I think we have to first establish clearly what it actually is and what it means to you. I think if you have this understanding, it is very It's not very difficult to spot inaccurate messaging in this space, and which is quite rampant today. A truly agentic AI system is a lot more than just a conversational assistant. Today, a lot of vendors disguise their conversational assistants as agentic AI. Purely from a user interface standpoint, it might be difficult to differentiate a conversational assistant from an agentic AI system. A lot of what an agentic AI system encompasses is more in the background than what you see in the forefront. So, what are the characteristics of an agentic AI system? Now, this is what I define as what needs to go or what makes up an agentic AI system. A definitive purpose, but with a broad range of addressable use cases, autonomy and decision making, a multi step reasoning and planning capability, long term memory, and learning through a feedback loop. Obviously, a focused context window, and finally, last but not least, trust and safety controls. So, we'll look at what this means one by one so you get a little bit of a more understanding or a better understanding of what I mean by this. Now, a true agentic AI system will include a collection of individual, purpose built agents which collectively solve a problem together. The system should be able to break down a very complex problem into smaller pieces and employ purpose built sub agents to carry out specific aspects of the problem at hand. Now, to kind of help you imagine how this works and at the digital level, now imagine you putting together a small team of 5 people to focus on coming up with ways to improve efficiency and reduce cost incurred by an organization. An ideal team should include a diverse set of people who specialize in a certain area, and of course, you need one person to oversee activities of this 5 person team. Ideally, you would put together a team of people from different departments to identify areas for cost reduction in each of their areas of expertise. A HR team member, for example, who holds expertise in hiring and employee benefits would be able to come back with areas where they can scale down spending without affecting the quality of work so much. Whereas a member from the IT team would come back with sections in infrastructure spending where spending could be reduced while balancing growth and efficiency of operations. Though the goal at hand is to find ways to reduce cost, you would need people from various departments to come back to you with areas where these cost cutting measures would have minimal impact. Now, imagine accomplishing this same goal at a digital level where you have an army of agents with expertise in each of these fields and access to organizational information across processes and practices working together to get you a report or a summary on areas where you can cut costs and improve efficiency. And most importantly, be able to execute some of those recommendations that it finalizes on. That is what an agentic AI system is. Though it might look like an agentic AI system can be tasked to do anything, these systems are purpose built. They have to be built to operate in a certain domain. This ensures the outcomes are appropriate and actionable. Now, the biggest turnoff to AI outcomes is vagueness. Now, if an agentic AI system comes up with very vague suggestions as to what needs to be done as corrective actions, then the value it brings about dramatically reduces. Now, the next important capability of an agentic AI system is in autonomy and decision making. An agentic AI system operates with a certain level of autonomy. It is designed to make decisions on its own based on information that is made available to it with very minimal human intervention, though it is up to individual organizations as to the level of autonomy they want their systems to have. Now, this autonomy that I'm referring to also applies to access to the tools and information that the agentic ecosystem will need. Depending on the task or goal at hand, agentic systems might need to access info across business and IT applications which hold necessary information that needs to be evaluated or considered in order to make a decision. Now, with a conversational bot, the interactions or conversations are very scoped. You ask a question, it retrieves an answer if it's available in its knowledge base. This doesn't really require any level of reasoning or planning to come back with an answer. Like I mentioned earlier, there is a great deal of difference between a conversational bot and an agentic AI system. In the example that I used earlier about cutting cost, uh, there have to be several angles in which the system has to evaluate the problem and come up with a solution. This is branched reasoning. Most often than not, needs to happen simultaneously and is offloaded to individual agents that work in tandem. This ensures the solution is reached at a reasonable time. Now, this system also recognizes reasoning branches that it might have taken for an earlier problem and decide on the fly as to whether a certain branch of reasoning could be fruitful or not. That way, saving time and compute power. Now, that brings us to the next point, which is long term memory and learning with the help of a feedback loop. In order to avoid redundant operations and be efficient, the agentic system is programmed with long term memory where it can remember previous instances of problem solving. This helps a lot. This helps the system evolve to understand the ecosystem of operation well, so it becomes more tuned to the organization in which it's operating and the problems at hand. This also ensures that the system becomes faster and mature over time, delivering results quicker and more contextual to the organization. This goes in hand with the goal oriented approach of agentic systems, since they are designed to address specific organizational goals. Their context of operation is also well defined. This context is what makes the outcomes very accurate. This also defines what organizational tools the agentic system needs to both access information as well as execute actions. In an agentic system, context is literally everything. The accuracy of analysis and outcomes, which is a byproduct of this context, ensures it's widely adopted across the organization. It also ensures that the AI used in these systems doesn't veer off course and avoids hallucinations. And so, an agentic system has clearly also, obviously, we talk about trust and safety, but what this translates to matters a lot. An agentic AI system has clearly defined guardrails that help organizations govern and control outcomes. The guardrails take the form of keeping a human in the loop before taking any actions to ensure no detrimental effects are caused, such as, let's say, rebooting a server right in the middle of production when it's actively being used. A key aspect is also explainability of the reasoning and actions executed by the system. So when an action is or was executed or the system went down a certain line of thought or reasoning, you always can trace back the logic behind such operations. So that is very important, which is explainability. Another aspect of traceback is detailed activity logs. This enables detailed review of events that led up to certain actions. A detailed review of these logs, besides being a security feature, can also help understand the inner workings of the system and be used for making it better down the line. So, the agentic AI system sounds great, right? Um, and it can solve, I'm sure, a lot of complex tasks. But is it the answer to everything? I would say it's probably not. Don't get me wrong, I'm someone who is highly optimistic about the things AI can accomplish, and someone who relies heavily on LLMs to help me with the my tasks on a daily basis. Though I have not measured it specifically, I can for sure tell you that it has definitely helped me be more productive lately. But partly the heavy use on the personal side is also why we sometimes tend to get carried away too much too soon. When it comes to implementing AI tech at an enterprise scale, these are certain things decision makers should consider and be aware of. First thing is, don't throw AI at everything. It is very important to pick use cases where AI implementations make sense and deliver good enough value that it offsets the time it takes to implement and the cost that goes into the implementation. I often see businesses and IT leaders looking at a catalog of AI functionality that is made available by vendors and jumping into implementations purely because of the wow factor than by looking at the outcome it can bring about. One good way to measure this is by using effort or cost versus outcome. And that is something all of us definitely need to do before we jump into AI implementations. Now, the second thing, what I would say is double check if AI is specifically needed for your use case. Let's say you've zeroed in on an outcome that you would like to achieve using an AI implementation. Check if these can be solved either using a rule based automation system, which you already have in place, or by statistical means. For example, assume there is a forecasting use case where we need to perform capacity planning on a server. There are proven statistical models that have been in use for over a decade, which can do an accurate prediction. Though AI can choose the right model for you, for something that you are going to repeat several times, you're better off fixing on a model that works best for you rather than letting AI choose a model for you each time. One, first of all, I mean, you probably are asking why are you even suggesting this? Two reasons. One, you are reducing the dependency on AI, and two is going to be the biggest factor with AI implementations in the future, which is cost. You end up saving a lot over time without having to spend tokens to process your requests each time you let AI choose a forecasting model for you when you already know what works best in most cases. Here's another example. Let's say you want a hardware update task to be triggered each time the disk utilization on critical servers hits 90%. You're better off setting up a rule based automation rather than using AI here, unless you want to maybe find out the root cause of uh, the disk maxing out each time. If it's a workflow with a very defined cause and effect, you're better off using rule based systems. When there is some level of reasoning involved, then is the time to bring in AI. More on, the reasoning bit I'm referring to later in the course of this webinar. But I hope you get the point. Do not throw AI at everything. There is a level of evaluation that I would recommend before we or you should jump into AI implementations. Now, we are used to going to ChatGPT now each time that we have a question and getting instant answers. While that may work for personal research, it might not always be conducive when running operations at an enterprise scale. Now, imagine routing 100 questions per minute, getting routed through one ChatGPT account. It just doesn't scale. Now, another important point to consider is that the room for errors or hallucination, which is a common problem with LLMs, is much higher when employing it at a personal level rather than for enterprise use cases. The true potential of AI can only be realized at a point where we have enough trust in it to execute actions directly. That is where the true autonomy comes into effect. But today, we are not there yet. There is not enough trust to expose organizational data to AI, and also not enough trust to allow it to take actions without human intervention. This truly limits exploiting the full potential of agentic AI. Now, this, to a certain extent, is a result of uh, the next big gap, which is context. What makes you and I important and not replaced by AI altogether is the innate knowledge we possess in each of our domains. The context is essential for running businesses or IT operations, and especially when it comes to decision making. LLMs and AI are good at world knowledge, but that wide spectrum of knowledge is not essential for business or specifically IT use cases. To simplify it, the AI stack that you need or you use needs to know what are the set of servers you are referring to when you say production server, right? That is the context that you're looking for at an enterprise scale. It doesn't really know or matter if it knows what is the capital of Portugal, for example. That is not information that is going to be relevant in any way. For your AI stack, this context can only come from the training datasets and the IT tools you use to run operations, which carry vital information about your IT infrastructure, speaking in IT terms. We are not at a point where we can replace our businesses and IT apps with AI. And to be honest, I don't think that will ever happen because the tools that we use to run our IT systems are purpose built to help us run our IT operations. AI, for example, can be very fast when you take one of the functions and compare it in isolation. One of the areas where this is evident is analyzing data. You can simply take a spreadsheet, put it into ChatGPT, and ask it to analyze the data. You will get results in a fraction of the time you would with any analytic software. Now, this sometimes skews our perception and makes us think that we can do away with our analytic software or IT tools altogether. But in reality, the file that you are feeding to your LLM is the end result of a process of extraction, data modeling, and periodic update from your tools, which AI cannot do on its own. So, what do you or what do I mean by all this? AI today is good for augmentation to your existing tools and not a replacement, because without context, AI cannot achieve meaningful results. So, where does this context come from? It comes from the tools and systems that are already r- running your business. Your IT monitoring tools, your service desk, your asset databases, your analytics platforms. These systems carry the structured operational knowledge that AI needs to make meaningful and reliable suggestions or decisions. Get rid of these tools and context goes out of the window along with it. So the approach, if you put all this together, should be augmentation rather than rip and replace. That perspective is important for business leaders today who are trying to improve operational efficiency with the help of AI initiatives. The realization will then help the type of projects um, they will prioritize and alter the type of AI tools that leaders will look for. Now, this brings us to the next part of our discussion, which is going to be around what are the common pitfalls to avoid um, in our pursuit of a fully autonomous and intelligent agentic system. First and foremost is how much we end up underestimating the cost of such implementations. Here, I'd like to go back to the initial point I was making around picking the right use cases to address, rather than taking the approach of look at what AI is capable of and fitting our use cases into it. Unless the use cases that are picked deliver great value to the organization, it shouldn't be picked because the cost doesn't offset the value delivered, even if it does deliver good value. And even if the implementations give you usable results, it might not always be sustainable in the long run, purely from a financial feasibility standpoint. So, the key here is to focus on the value your implementations can deliver. What matters to AI also is the quality of the data rather than the volume you throw at it. For decades now, we in the analytics space have talked about data quality and ensuring better data management. And it is more important than ever now because the output of your AI implementation is strongly tied to the quality of the data you feed. Focus on quality rather than volume. This is primarily because one of the biggest problems with AI initiatives, and especially with LLMs, is to keep it within the context of your use case or problem. I'm sure most of you have come across this concept of hallucination with LLMs, where it veers off course and fills gaps on its own with info or interpretation which might not always be relevant to the intended subject. So it's very important to scope the amount of data you expose to keep AI systems within the context window of analysis. For an agentic AI system to actually be useful and deliver value, it needs to freely interact with tools in the organization. It needs to be able to retrieve info and execute actions. This is generally referred to as tool calling. Without being able to interface with the other systems, your agentic system is a mere analysis engine, which would be a gross underuse. The true potential of agentic systems is in accomplishing a very hands free approach to running IT operations, and that is only possible when you allow it to collect the data it needs and execute the actions that it decides on. Obviously, this takes a lot of confidence to hand over the keys to an automated system. One approach to address this is to keep a human in the loop where the agentic system comes back to you for confirmation before it executes any actions. This way, you are still in control. Speaking of control, what also comes to mind is the guardrails that we usually put into place in our agentic systems. It might sound a little odd if I say don't put too many guardrails, but I think to an extent we should keep the guardrails to a minimum, at least in our sandbox or testing phase, to truly get a sense of what value the agentic systems can bring about. And finally, the large language model space is evolving rapidly. I don't have to, that's not news, right? And there clearly is not a long time winner who has emerged yet. So, locking your system into a single LLM provider at this stage can severely limit your agility. While vertical integration might give you a more unified experience in the short term, with a specific LLM, it also ties you to a vendor in a market that is still in a great deal of flux. To stay adaptable, your agentic architecture should be designed with portability in mind, making it easy to swap out or integrate with a different LLM um, as the landscape changes. Flexibility now means resilience later. All right, so we talked quite a bit about what agentic systems are capable of, but what are some real life examples where we can see these systems in action? Are any out there in deployed in the industry which are delivering values? Now, while I looked or tried to look up agentic AI systems in action today, these are the closest things that I was able to come across. Now, AI has been making steady inroads in healthcare long before agentic AI became a buzzword, particularly in drug discovery, where speed and accuracy are critical. Now, a great example I was able to find is AstraZeneca partnership with a leading tech company to accelerate treatments for kidney disease. Together, they developed an AI system that built a comprehensive biomedical knowledge graph, mapping the relationships between genes, proteins, and compounds, which allowed researchers to rapidly explore disease mechanisms and identify promising drug candidates. The impact, they reduced the time required for early stage discovery by about 70%, significantly speeding up the path to clinical development. These systems also shine a lot in environments where real time analysis and autonomous decision making are essential, like manufacturing. Take Siemens, for instance. They implemented a predictive maintenance system that continuously analyzed equipment performance data to forecast malfunctions before they happened. This allowed them to proactively schedule maintenance, avoiding costly disruptions. And the results were very clear: 30% reduction in unplanned downtime and 20% cut in maintenance costs. Now, who wouldn't want that? And in logistics, timing and efficiency are everything. And these systems are starting to show real value there as well. DHL deployed uh, these capabilities to their logistics to forecast package volumes and dynamically plan delivery routes and adjusting delivery windows in real time. Instead of static schedules, their delivery operations became fluid and responsive to daily demand shifts. So, this helped them with a 30% improvement in on time deliveries and 20% saving in fuel costs, which is a good thing for both customer service and operational efficiency. Now, these are great numbers, and the gains that these organizations are able to get is immensely valuable. But do you want to know the shocking truth? These companies themselves do not or have not claimed these advancements as agentic AI, but the media that is developing, citing these examples, introduce the claim. What these implementations point to are traditional areas such as machine learning, pattern recognition, and deep analysis that AI systems have been known and proven to be good at for several decades now. However, it is very easy to dub these as agentic AI capabilities because the lines are very thin at this point until we see agentic AI deployments at a large scale. So, what I'd like you to do when you read about an agentic AI deployment in the future is to compare it with points I talked about earlier when I was referring to the ingredients of an agentic AI system to see if it really qualifies to be called an agentic AI system in the first place. I use these examples to more or less reinforce my point that not all AI systems you see are powered by agentic AI. We are at the beginning of a long and interesting journey where we will see mature agentic AI systems delivering multifold value. Agentic AI systems are going to be an evolution, an extension of our existing capabilities. So let's put all this together. What should you really focus on then? From our initial definition and agreement on what an agentic AI system is, learnings from what we see in the industry and figuring out what are key ingredients that make an agentic AI system um, that you can put to use today. So, this is what we're going to look at in this section. Now, an important aspect to consider is that agentic AI systems are not an ecosystem of capabilities that are vastly different from that of traditional AI systems. It's not like you get a completely new set of capabilities if you go agentic. It's a mix of AI capabilities that have matured over the years working in an agentic mode. So, what are these capabilities of AI that can be good ingredients for an agentic AI systems that you are going to build? When you're building your own agentic AI ecosystems, these capabilities should form the core. Of course, depending on your use case and applications, a few of these might be more important than the other. Reasoning is the biggest area where we have seen a lot of improvements in the recent years, especially after LLMs arrived. And those of you who use LLMs on a daily basis, you would have definitely noticed this. Based on the information that is available or researched, LLMs are able to reason like a human. This deep reasoning capability, though is not completely new, is now open to public and has been commercialized a great deal. The reasoning capability is the biggest differentiator because the reasoning drives action, and the path of reasoning the system takes defines our confidence level in allowing actions to be taken autonomously. I'm putting a lot of emphasis on this area because I feel this is the true game changer. When you had two data points and you wanted to do something like a correlation analysis, for example, earlier you had to specifically add a correlation function in your analysis and explicitly tell the system what it needs to do. Now, you can simply allow the system to pick the right operation to perform once you have the two data points. This allows you to construct systems that will pick the most appropriate action to perform in the chain of analysis. This is not something we had earlier. And also because LLMs are trained on a variety of world knowledge, they're able to prescribe some corrective recommendations when presented with a problem. I'm sure a lot of you here are diagnosing medical issues with ChatGPT. I'm for sure someone who is in that camp as well. Though they might not be highly accurate based on my experience with it, out of four or five things it's able to suggest, one or two of those are definitely usable. That is still a good 20% hit rate. of useful suggestions, which is not too bad if you ask me. You can complement the reasoning layer with context from your tool stack and improve the accuracy of corrective recommendations. This will be the first step in gaining trust before we make agentic systems completely autonomous. As the accuracy of recommendations improve with context from our tools, our trust in it is bound to increase. As step two, this will allow us to let agentic systems come up with recommendations, check with human behavior, or check with humans before it can execute the suggestion. And step three would, of course, be to gain enough confidence in the system to let it operate autonomously. So the takeaway here is when we are designing our agentic system today, we should work in a recommendation layer into it so that we can use it as our review system to judge the accuracy and the path of your system, the path your systems take for analysis. And finally, the biggest unlock would be multi-agent systems. Multi-agent systems would be the biggest unlock that organizations will be able to benefit from. Here again, I'm not talking about several agents working independently, rather, a system of agents working in tandem by breaking down a complex problem and working simultaneously to achieve an outcome. Complex organizational problems which need deep analysis in different parts of reasoning cannot be done by a single agent. A multi agent model is the way to go. Having said that, you shouldn't go after a multi agent system for everything. We are yet to see a mature multi agent system capable of operating at an enterprise scale, solving enterprise problems. So it's good to slowly work up to a mature system while you may still start out slow with a single specialized agent for your tasks. So that is kind of like the key focus areas or capabilities that you need to uh, focus on building into your AI implementations. Now, coming to the all important question. So, how does privacy fit into all of this? Can you really send your data to an LLM? Okay, now it's pretty clear that our agentic systems, more or less, are going to include LLMs as one of the main components of the architecture. That brings the question of data protection and privacy. Of course, you can design an agentic system without an LLM, but again, you would tend to lose out on the advantages that we discussed, such as deep reasoning. So, how do we address this problem then? The biggest obstacle most people have today with LLMs is trust. Lack of trust because we are not sure how these LLM vendors are going to use our data. The point of contention is at the stage where we share corporate data with LLMs. While the trust levels have slightly increased since the time LLMs hit mainstream, it is still not at a point where we are okay to make it work on our corporate data, even though they promise not to use it for internal training purposes. There are a few things you could adopt in order to maintain privacy while still making use of of LLMs for their benefits. I'll not talk a lot, or no, I'll not talk about all of them. Rather, three of them I found useful based on projects that we have taken up. Of course, based on your use case, the techniques that might work for you would differ. However, I'm kind of touching upon these mainly to convey the point that there are ways around the privacy dilemma. Now, the first technique that I will talk about is noise addition, which involves adding an offset to your data. For example, let's say I want to share the CPU utilization of a server over the past 6 months and let an LLM correlate the utilization spikes with the number of applications running on the server. I can add an offset of 5% to the CPU utilization values. I'm sharing to the LLM because what matters for this correlation is the relative jump in CPU based on application usage rather than the actual values. Of course, when I get the results back from the LLM, I need a layer that removes the offset so I can use it for my consumption. But you get the idea, right? So you're deliberately introducing a level of controlled noise into your transactions or conversations, so you are never sharing the real data sets with the LLM. Another useful technique is tokenization. The noise addition technique could be useful when it comes to numerical values, but might not be great for text values. Meaning, when you need to share names of organizational members, tokenization or encryption might be appropriate. This involves generating random alphanumeric tokens for your text values instead of passing the values as is. Again, you would need an encryption and decryption layer which will encode the values back to its original form before it's consumed by a human for interpretation. Another popular technique, which we are all used to quite a bit now, is masking, where sensitive PII data, such as, let's say, social security numbers, are completely masked by replacing the values with asterisks or sending blank values. So, the fundamental layer, irrespective of what mode you choose to protect your data, is encryption or decryption layer, which acts as the privacy protection layer for your data. I also see organizations which are closely regulated going the route of working on in house LLMs that are completely cut off from the rest of the world. That is one way of getting the best out of both worlds. And I see this trend developing further in highly regulated industries such as banking and financial institutions. Just as how private cloud deployment takes advantages of SaaS platforms with a privacy angle to it, I see this trend developing in the same direction and could become mainstream. All right, so we talked about a lot of things. We talked about what agentic AI is, what it's capable of, what you should focus uh, when you're building your own AI systems, what are the capabilities that you should definitely work into your AI implementations, and also talked about how to handle this whole privacy dilemma. So that brings us to the question, all important question, what are we doing with our analytics division at ManageEngine? And to an extent at ManageEngine as a whole itself. Now, one of the key things that has always been in focus for us at ManageEngine is the value. We always try to deliver maximum value for you out of the software products that you use from us. And that DNA has gone into our AI initiatives as well. We don't want to throw AI at everything just because we can. Our focus is on fitting AI into delivering value invisibly. AI at the beginning of a hype cycle, which it is in right now, though I believe AI has seen several hype cycles before, and this is the biggest one of them all. Um, During a height of a hype cycle, features tend to take the form of products. And in the lower end of a hype cycle, you see the value that these products give you get incorporated as features. So we see AI evolving as an invisible layer amongst the core capabilities of our products, which will simply simplify operations for the IT team rather than seeing AI itself as a product. We want to tap into the core areas where AI excels in and incorporate them into our products to make analysis and decision making simple for you, the IT manager, the IT technician, CIO, and the likes. We are very conscious of the use cases that we are picking in order to be solved by AI, Wherever existing frameworks can be used, we are sticking to using those frameworks. A good example I talked about is earlier is forecasting. We have a long proven list of forecasting algorithms packaged into our applications, which have been battle tested for years now. It absolutely does not make sense for us to offload forecasting to AI. We are investing in deep reasoning that will connect the dots from various events that happen across IT. From an activity standpoint, if you think about it, IT is an area where there is no shortage of events. The key thing most organizations struggle is to keep up with the things that happen across the IT landscape, let alone connect events together. At ManageEngine, we believe there is a lot of potential in unlocking these interconnections. Imagine being able to do a postpartum analysis of an outage in seconds using the power of AI, which gathers all related data points and constructs a timeline of all activities that led up to the outage. Humans would probably take hours or even days putting this together, while AI can do that in seconds. This is the power that we are trying to unlock. Add the reasoning capability of LLMs to the mix, and you have a well rounded solution where you are not only connecting events together but also understanding the reasons why some events occurred. This reasoning helps us to get recommendations on what you need to do in order to avoid a certain event from reoccurring. This completes the entire chain from analyzing the data, connecting the dots, understanding the reasons why something happened, and also getting recommendations on what to do in order to avoid similar issues in the future. This entire chain that we are trying to develop is not completely offloaded to AI or LLMs. This will work with a combination of traditional analysis and statistical techniques and bring in the AI or LLM component in very specific sections of the entire chain of process. This ensures two things. We scope the data that is exposed to the LLM or the AI layer. The reduced volume ensures the workloads we run are not heavy on processing. This ensures that we keep the cost of processing low and don't pass on the cost to you, the consumer. It goes without saying that we don't ever expose your raw data to LLMs and use a combination of techniques I talked about earlier to protect your data. In fact, we are routing majority of our workloads to our own Zia LLM, which is built in-house and reduces dependency on third-party LLM vendors. Having our own LLM has a lot of advantages beyond just data privacy. Um, it can be customized to be industry specific and so more accurate in the way it does the data analysis, um, and keep it very contextual and offer recommendations that are very contextual. LLMs built in a B2C space requires world knowledge, whereas LLMs that are context built or custom built for enterprise doesn't really need that world knowledge. So that helps us focus it to the industry that we are trying to address. So that is our general approach to how we're looking at things from ManageEngine's own analytics division. So um, there are a big or a huge set of capabilities that we are working on. And but before that, I want to talk a little bit about the existing AI stack that we have and how whatever we're going to do in the future is going to primarily complement or add on top of what we already have. So these are the notable AI capabilities that are available in ManageEngine Analytics Plus. But I think before we get to that, I think I have to give you a little bit of a context of what Analytics Plus is. Analytics Plus is an IT analytics software from ManageEngine. The key capability of Analytics Plus is that it is able to plug to your existing tool stack from your IT space and also from your business space. So it can plug to products like ManageEngine's own Services Plus, or if you have ServiceNow for your IT service management, or let's say you have Op Manager from ManageEngine for IT operations management, or you have I don't know Dynatrace for monitoring your network and applications. Analytics Plus can plug into it using its out-of-the-box connectors and offer unified IT analytics. The whole idea is to bridge all of the IT data that is available in your enterprise and help you make meaningful sense of it, right? That is pretty much the core of what Analytics Plus does. And as you can imagine, when it comes to data, there is a lot of AI and ML capabilities that goes into the application. So you get the intelligent insights out of the box, your conversational assistant built on our homegrown AI with predictive and prescriptive analytics capabilities. So that is the context of what we do with Analytics Plus as a product. And going back to the AI stack, starting with Ask Zia, the 2.0 version that we recently released. Now, Ask Zia is a conversational assistant which can understand questions in plain English and answer those questions in the form of reports and dashboards. So, for example, let's say you want to go in and find out what is the application server, for example, which is not performing well, or what is the key area where your end users are dissatisfied. Zia can automatically understand the context of your question, figure out which application to get the data from, be it IT service management or IT operations management, and give you a dashboard or a report that answers that question. Now, the 2.0 version of Zia is powered by Zoho's own LLM, Zia's LLM, which is a lot more contextual now, which can also answer questions as to why something happened the way it did. We also have Zia Insights, which is our, I call it the Gen AI for IT, which can break down any report on a dashboard, highlighting key trends, breaking down complex analysis, and gives you a generative summary of everything that happened um, in that particular metric or KPI that you are trying to analyze. And on top of that, we have key driver analysis, which can give you a quick diagnostics of the key factors that influenced a certain trend in your IT, or what were the key factors that drove a certain trend or an anomaly. So it gives you a starting points in terms of what to look for when you are trying to solve a problem or an issue. And we have Spotlight, which is a recommendations engine, which goes beyond you asking a question. Now, what I mean by that is Zia, our conversational assistant, works off of the questions that you ask and answers questions with help of reports and dashboards. Now, what recommendations engine does is it automatically looks for inefficiencies in your IT operations, compares that with your past performance, compares that against industry standards, and tells you where your operations are inefficient, and also gives you recommendations on what you need to do in order to fix those inefficiencies. And finally, we release support for model context protocol in Analytics Plus. Now, if you are in the journey of building your agentic AI system, you need to be able to plug into Analytics Plus, which holds key data about your IT. So that's where the LLM pluggability comes in. Using model context protocol, your agents can interface with analytics, get real-time metrics, and also trigger workflows or initiate workflows right from within your agentic AI interface. So I'll give you a quick sneak peek of what this looks like so you get an idea of what exactly these capabilities are. This is our Ask Zia interface and also the user interface of ManageEngine Analytics Plus. Now you can simply come to Azure, ask a question, something like show me the trend of application response time, and it'll automatically give you a visual of what exactly you asked for. So here I have the last few months trend of response times. Now, it doesn't stop with just answering those questions. You can also, let's say I spotted a certain spike in a particular month of December 2024. I can ask follow-up questions as to why there was a spike in December 2024, and it will automatically answer those questions by identifying the key reasons or key drivers um, behind that particular trend, right? So here I have the potential drivers, which is making my response time go higher. Again, you can also ask recommendations and find out what you need to do to decrease the application response time in this particular case, and you get recommendations here which talk about what you can do, what are the key business units or applications which are driving up the response time, which is causing your overall trend to spike. So it's a real powerful engine which understands the context of your questions and also gives you recommendations in terms of what you can do in order to fix those issues. And it understands where it needs to go and get the data from based on the question that you are asking. And this is an example of what you can expect by plugging Analytics Plus to your Agentic AI system using a model context protocol. So here I'm in the interface of GitHub Copilot, where I can simply ask my questions. It's using Analytics Plus's MCP to connect to the data that is sitting inside Analytics Plus and giving you the list of incidents that took more than 5 days to resolve. So the question is being asked in GitHub Copilot, and using MCP, Copilot is able to connect to Analytics Plus and get this data. Now you can dig deeper. You can also ask it to identify the technicians who have the highest resolution time in this category, so that you can find out who are the technicians who are good in this area and trigger a reassignment so that they can take up these tickets and start working on it to fix those long pending tickets. So you get the best of both worlds. You have Azure, where you can go in and directly get recommendations, get key insights from the data that you're analyzing. Now with MCP, you can also plug Analytics Plus to your Agentic AI, which can ask these questions as part of a workflow. That's most important, and get these answers. And finally, this is an example of what our recommendations engine, the Spotlight, looks like. Like I mentioned, this doesn't wait for you to ask questions. It automatically digs through the data that is available in Analytics Plus as a virtue of connecting all your IT applications, and can automatically spot inefficiencies, bring focus to areas that needs your attention, and also gives you recommendations in terms of what you need to do. And for all of this capability that I'm showing you right now, it doesn't rely on LLMs. It doesn't send your data anywhere outside. All of this is homegrown technology that is already available in Analytics Plus. And this by itself adds a lot of value that organizations are able to unlock using Analytics Plus. And of course, we are making more advancements in terms of how we can use an agentic AI system to further make this a lot better. All right, so that is our existing AI stack. And I also want to talk a little bit about what exactly we are working on in the future. So obviously, Agentic AI is a very promising area. Like I mentioned, has a lot of potential where we can do a lot of interesting things. And we are right at the cusp of that technology, trying to extract the maximum value out of it. So, what we want to do with Analytics Plus specifically is build an army of agents which have capability across various domains, be it IT service management, IT operations management, endpoint management, and security. And these agent or multi-agent system will be controlled by a unified IT intelligence agent, which will do the orchestration. So when you go and ask questions, it will choose the right agents to work on those questions, coordinate, and sometimes it can your questions can require you to um, require the agent to kind of look at various aspects for which it will employ the sub agents to come up with your answers or insights that you are looking for. So imagine a multi-agent system within Analytics Plus, which is ready to take your questions, work on these deep reasoning capabilities, and get you insights from your IT operations so that you can run your IT and business very efficiently. So we are very excited about this specific avenue, and we are seeing some very good results in the initial stages, and we hope to come out with this publicly as soon as possible. But at the same time, we don't want to rush into it. We want to ensure that you are able to get the maximum value from what we are able to put out using Analytics Plus. All right, so that is a quick sneak peek of what is that we are working on in Analytics Plus at the moment. All right, so we've covered a lot of things during the session today. I hope you found it useful, and I want to leave you with one thought, and that is that when it comes to agentic AI and what is possible with AI today, we're more or less at the beginning of a 5 to 10 year cycle where we'll see some exceptional applications that will change the way we operate in the future. But it takes time. There's a lot we can learn from history when it comes to such breakthroughs. For example, it took about 5 to 6 decades from the time modern fuels were invented to cars being mass produced. Of course, we as humans have evolved quite a bit from that time and have gotten better at adopting new technology. Agentic AI, I'm sure, will become mainstream in another 5 years, but it still does need that time to get there. Whenever there is a breakthrough of this scale, there are a lot of winners, but there are also a lot more losers. It is up to us to choose the right path and stay diligent, and most importantly, find value in the meantime so we are successful in the long run. So, I hope this webinar helps you in that journey at a small level. And thank you so much for listening. We'll take a few questions now based on the amount of time that we still have available. Right. So the first question we have here, and I think we have a lot of questions around LLMs as I expected. The first question I have here is from Gerard, and the question is, which LLM is better? Um, to be very honest, each LLM that we have evaluated so far is good at a certain area. Some LLMs are good at deep reasoning, whereas some LLMs are better at remaining within a particular context window. So it really comes down to your use case. Um, and it's because each of our use cases are going to be very tuned to the industry or the company that we are associated with, the best way to go about is evaluate a couple or at least two to three LLMs to see which suits your use cases better. Uh, there is no single straight answer. I mean, like I mentioned in the previous section, there isn't really a clear winner that has emerged in the LLM space. It's a very evolving space, as you can imagine and are aware of. So I would recommend testing as much as possible for your specific use case when you're building your agentic AI system, and figuring out what works best. At this point, I don't think, because none of the LLMs really stand out as much um, for a specific set of use cases. I'm not in a position to recommend one, but ensure that you test enough before you set out on this journey and pushing your code to production. Right, the next question from Vicky is, what are some challenges you are facing with LLMs when you're building your agentic AI system? Um, it is both challenging and has been very a very good learning experience. If I have to probably think of the top challenges that we've had, is one is more of a realization than a challenge, is that when you throw a lot of data at LLMs, they are not able to give you very accurate results, and they tend to hallucinate quite a bit. So that's why I stress upon minimizing the amount of data that you expose to your LLM, and kind of making your prompts very, very specific so that you get the answers that you are expecting to for it to really make a big difference. Um, yeah, I think that stands out the most to me. And also another realization is, we kind of, like I said, our personal experience makes us think that LLM is the answer to everything, but it's not. You need to kind of ensure that you use your existing frameworks wherever possible, so that you don't offload the entire workload to your LLMs. That will ensure that your implementations are successful. All right, so yeah, I mean, I think that is all the time that we have for questions. We've run over our time limit, but hopefully, this session was helpful in understanding and breaking down the agentic AI ecosystem, and hope it helps you in building your own. So, thank you all again for taking the time to pay attention to a very long session that this turned out to be. And I hope to see you again soon in another discussion as soon as possible. All right, thank you so much, and you guys have a great day.